I'm Jess Burns with headlines for FSRN. Former Army analyst Bradley Manning was sentenced to 35 years in prison today for leaking sensitive and classified government documents to WikiLeaks. Manning has already served 3 of those years and will be eligible for parole in another 7. More than a dozen actions have been planned across the U.S., U.K., and Australia to protest the sentence. FSRN will have more on this story later in the program. Syrian activists say as many as 1,300 people have been killed by military forces in an early morning chemical weapons attack in suburbs near Damascus. If confirmed, this would be the world's deadliest chemical attack in decades. FSRN's Jacob Resnick reports from Istanbul.
Footage from freelance photographers shared with news channels showed dozens of bodies, many of them women and young children laid out in the open, their arms crossed and eyes closed.
This massacre puts the world on attention. It really sends a message to all of the international organizations, to the number of crimes this regime is willing to commit.
That's the voice of Khalid Saleh, a Syrian National Coalition spokesman, briefing reporters today in Istanbul. He called on the United Nations and Western powers to verify these claims and said the UN Security Council should take concrete action. Meanwhile, in Damascus, Syria's state-run news agency called the reports of a chemical attack completely baseless. Already, the White House has joined France, the UK, and Syria's diplomatic ally Russia in calling the UN Chemical Weapons Inspection Team, which arrived in Syria just 3 days ago, to investigate. This afternoon, the Security Council called an emergency session. The White House had previously said the use of chemical weapons would constitute a so-called red line. If investigators prove this was indeed a chemical attack, it could be a major test for Washington, which recently publicly ruled out any military intervention in Syria's civil war. Jacob Resnick, FSRN, Istanbul.
Japan's nuclear agency says it is considering raising the threat level surrounding the disabled Fukushima Daiichi power plant to a serious incident. A serious incident rating on the International Nuclear Event Scale is the 3rd on a 7-level measure. The International Atomic Energy Agency will make the final determination. Today marks the opening of the Occupy movement's 2nd national gathering. This year it's being held in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Activists from the U.S. and Canada will be strategizing around issues like fracking, the Alberta's tar sands project, student debt, home foreclosures, and freedom of the press. FSRN's Taylor-Canfield has more.
The Occupy Wall Street movement emerged on September 17, 2011 in New York City, but since has spread across the U.S., Canada, and the world. OWS-affiliated groups are still active in cities and small communities from Vancouver, British Columbia to Burlington, Vermont. During the 5 days of events, organizers will be offering workshops and teach-ins designed to educate and re-energize activists. Several local protest actions are also planned. Occupy organizers say they chose Michigan for their gathering because of the financial crisis currently taking place. Major metropolitan areas have been devastated by bankruptcies and budget cuts, and financial managers now govern Detroit and other cities. The national gathering in Michigan overlaps with another major grassroots mobilization marking the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington, which culminates next Wednesday. Taylor-Canfield, Free Speech Radio News.
And that's headlines for FSRN. I'm Jess Burns.